Hello, leaguers. We are back with our MAA session. So happy to have you here with us. Super excited. And today we are going to talk about product culture. Product management is not a one-person job. If it takes a village to raise a child, it surely does take a company to raise a product. This is what we refer to when we talk about product culture. It's an environment where product management is practiced and valued by the business and the stakeholders. It's where product managers can thrive and grow. It's an atmosphere that lets you do your job and deliver products that actually solve customer problems. Hello, leaguers, and welcome to today's Ask Me Anything session, the place where talented and curious product managers like you get the opportunity to ask us everything. Well, clearly, product culture is something that needs to be developed and established. However, that doesn't ease the challenge of creating one. Because of this, today, this session will be an excellent session, a session that is useful for PMs of all levels. By the way, I'm Moriya Kassis, founder and general manager of Product League, and what we do is helping you to become the best product manager you can be. Product League is an international product management mentoring program for product managers by product managers, and if by any chance you're new here, please make sure to type your name in the comments and where you're from, because I want to meet you. I am so happy to have these sessions with you because it's so valuable. I'm so happy to have these MAAs back, and stay tuned because more MAAs are coming your way very soon. And now we've got three talented, dedicated, and experienced Product League mentors to answer all your questions about the why and the how of building product culture, especially in companies that are not tech first. You are at the right place. So joining us live from Tel Aviv, please welcome Guy Amrany to the stage. Hi, Guy.
Hi, great to be here, Moriya.
So happy to have you here with us. Guy is product lead at CurveTech and Product League mentor. Guy expanded his product expertise throughout his career, covering a wide scope of enterprise functions. Today, he leads the product and marketing team at CurveTech and spearhead the development and launch of new products serving enterprises and e-commerce merchants in various business challenges using artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies. And I am so excited to have you here with us. This is your second time with us as a mentor, but first time on our floor, on our stage. So the excitement level is kind of like here. Very excited about hearing from you and learning about your experience. And I'm sure that the audience will have some interesting and challenging questions to ask you. So are you ready?
Ready for anything. Shoot at me.
Amazing. You were saying I was born ready. I'm a product manager. I'm always ready.
We are ready. This is our job, to be ready.
Exactly right. Thank you very much, Guy. We are going to see you again soon. And joining us from Los Angeles, please shout out a big hello to Victoria Kazovsky. How are you today, Victoria? Mute.
Yes, I'm talking to myself. Can you guys hear me now? Hi.
Always great. Very excited to have you here. And guys, just so you know why I'm so excited, Victoria is head of product at Kantar Insights and Product League mentor. Victoria Kazovsky has a long and very tenure in the product and technology space in big companies and small startup in the market research and insight space, like Lightspeed Research and Instantly, as well as companies in different industries like YP.com, Nimble, Amdocs, and you may recognize Victoria from her previous session with us in the previous batch, where we talked about market research and insight, and we learned a lot then, and we are very excited to learn from you again. So thank you very much, Victoria, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you here with us. And last but not least, joining us live from Tel Aviv, please welcome to the stage, Itzik Adziashvili. How are you today?
I'm already here again.
Can't hear you well. Something in the sound.
Yeah.
Okay, I will let you
Me
some
now?
time to check it out and see what went wrong with the settings. And in the meantime, I will introduce you to our crowd. So Itzik is VP Product at Uni Diamonds and Product League Mentor. Throughout his career, Itzik has been driven by his intellectual curiosity to find answers to the most pressing issues. Whether it's finding the best restaurant or creating a product to solve human challenges, Itzik has been able to quickly uncover a customer pain point and identify a strategic solution. He enjoyed playing basketball, drinking whiskey, and eating his way around the world. Let's check your sound right now. Say hello to the crowd.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, I think it's a little better. We will see what went wrong there. Now we are calling back to the stage Guy and Victoria. Guys, so happy to have you here. Before we start with the questions that were submitted by the audience, I am sure that you all know the new book, Empowered, by Marty Kagan and Chris Jones. And in the book, they offer a framework of 3 consistent themes for identifying winning product organization, and they include the following: the role of technology, strong product leadership, and empowered product teams. Now, we like to check everything that we do and base everything on data. This is why today we launch a poll on our LinkedIn page asking exactly that. What makes a strong product culture? Now, guys, you please tell me, what do you think that the audience, the leaguers, chose as the key element? Okay, the one thing that stands behind good product culture. So we have technology, product leadership, and product teams that are empowered. What do you think? What is your guess?
I'll go for strong product leadership because this is where it all starts.
Very interesting. Victoria?
Just knowing it's Marty Kagan also, I'll say probably the empowered product teams is the team, but I also, kind of thinking along the same lines, the other two are great. The other two are great, but if the product teams are not feeling empowered or able, the other two are going to be, very hard to drive product culture without empowerment.
Very interesting. Yeah. And Itzik, what is your guess?
So definitely won't reduce the significance of the other options, but I totally agree with Victoria. All product teams, I really agree that this is the basis for a good product organization and to succeed.
Well, guys, this is what the audience shows with 86% for the last time I checked, with empowered product teams as what makes a strong product culture. So you actually had a very, very good guess. And also Guy in the audience was choosing teams as well. So we are all on the right mindset of teams, of leadership, of the right elements that build product culture. And this is exactly what we are going to discuss in just a few. So how is it going to work? When registered to the event, we gave you, the audience, the opportunity to ask us anything you want about building product culture in companies, especially in companies where they are not tech first. We chose the most frequently asked questions, but also questions that were exciting, interesting, and what we believe can help you to become the best product manager you can be. But we don't stop there, because at the end of the session, we will also have an open Q&A where these 3 experienced product league mentors will answer the questions that you guys will submit in the chat. So, leaguers, you got 2 call to actions. 1, please show us some product love, like this video, like our channel, subscribe, share us some product love. And show the magnificent 3 product league mentors, show them that you want to learn from them. So this is 1. Second one, please make sure to submit your question in the chat. If you're watching us on LinkedIn, there is a chat there as well. So YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, all are waiting for you, all these 3 platforms, and we are checking the questions that you are submitted there. Let us know what is on your mind and heart when it comes to building product culture in your company. And who knows, maybe you'll receive the answer that you are looking for. Now, with no further ado, Victoria, Guy, and Itzik, what do you say? Is this the right time to start talking about product culture and answering the questions?
Definitely.
Perfect.
Totally.
Loving it. So the first question is from Sarah. It goes to all of you. And she's asking, what is product culture to you? Who wants to start?
So I can start. I really can summarize it with, it's all about communication inside the team, with the management, with the internal stakeholders, with the customers, with partners. Having a good communication can create an amazing collaboration between everyone, can focus everyone on the shared vision. And I really think this is the basis and the lead factor for a good product culture.
Loving it. So culture comes from communication, the two C's. Great. Victoria and Guy, what do you have to bring to the table? What is product culture to you?
I can give it a try. And I really could relate to when you were doing the intro, Moriya, saying product culture is really an environment. And that's how I think about it. And to achieve that environment, I think it's a combination of some guiding principles and also ways of working, right? I think to me, culture is more than just the mindset of how you approach product, but it's also the ways your team is working and the way the larger organization sees product management as well. So it's really, to me, it's that environment that lets you as a product manager do your job successfully in terms of bringing, solving meaningful customer problems and driving value to the business.
I think you just touched upon a very important point where product culture is not about what happens within the department of product. It's about what happens in the whole organization, because if you don't feel that you're being supported and appreciated as a product person in the whole company, well, we are not going far with that. So thank you very much for mentioning this, Victoria. This is great. And Guy, I'm sure you have something to add.
Of course. As my colleagues said, and as we can see, and as we know, culture eventually is a very, very broad, probably the broadest term that lives within an organization. So if I have to cherry pick what distinguishes the product culture, I would go for several things. One would be the extreme respect, or even should I say, fear of the customer-centric, user-centric. Think about all the time in every action that you do. What would the customer think? How would he feel? How would he enjoy your product and your every small thing? And the second thing, respect the market, fear from the market. There's always someone there that did something genius that you need to try to do. And the ability to accept failure and iterate. This is the three things that probably as product managers we can convey as the culture that we try to bring to our organizations. These are these thoughts that we talk about all day and we try to convince others that's the way to go.
Be obsessed with your customer. I love it. Thank you very much. All of you, I think that we already touched upon a few very interesting points that had to do with product culture. So now we are set to dive a little deeper, and we are moving back to you, Victoria, with a question that comes from Daniel. And he's asking, why are we discussing the differentiation between tech first and non-tech first companies? How does it affect the company's culture? And should I consider this element when searching for my next position?
Oh, that's a good question. And I'll tackle it in two parts, I think. One is, let's first think about what it means to be a non-tech first company. So there's companies that are non-tech in its core because their product is not a technology product. Right, it's not a software product. There are a bunch of companies out there where they sell, physical products is at the core of their business, and a lot of those companies do have product management function, or sometimes it's called something else in non-tech companies. And I would say, in those companies, there is still a place, and product management, philosophy and culture is broadly the same because the problems for physical products you need to solve are fundamentally the same. You still need to know the needs of your customers. You still need to understand your market. You still need to know how you're going to differentiate. You still need to be data-driven. So all of those things are still important, but I would say that there's a lot of kind of nuances when you're thinking about product management in companies where their product is a technology or a software product that add to that product culture around the ways engineering is approached and the way you work with development. The other side, which I think is the more common, at least in my experience where I've had the most exposure, is companies that started as non-tech companies, started as something else, usually in some kind of services space. And then over time, they realize, that there's an opportunity and that's, where the market is going. And they're trying to come up with technology products that they want to sell either to consumers or to their customers as well. So they're somewhere on this digital transformation journey. And a lot of the times, and I think there is a big impact that I've seen in product culture, depending on where those companies are on their transformation journey. That's not to say that all the tech first companies have great product culture, but I think there are some nuances that have to do with companies that started as non-tech companies first that have to do with a little bit of a legacy in my experience. And I think one is the legacy in the mindset of how you approach technology. I think you had one of your first points about a strong product culture had to do with, how strong your engineering team is. I think, the reality is a lot of those companies that started as non-tech first, they had some internal applications, they had some IT services, some IT departments. And then a lot of the times when they come up with great ideas of, we're going to build product that's going to be client facing, we're going to go to market. A lot of the times they think that using the existing people and the existing processes and, is still going to work when you're trying to build client facing products. And to me, I think there are some subset of challenges that comes with it. I think Marty Kagan, actually, since you mentioned him, one of his favorite articles that I find very relevant still is about IT mindset versus product mindset in a lot of those companies, where there's still not fully good understanding of the role of product management. More often than not, you see that product managers are treated as glorified project managers or like business analysts that are there to gather and document requirements. I also see like the caliber of the engineering teams are different. They're not truly partners and they're treated as, resources that can code, and then, the focus on the customer centricity and the importance of user interaction and user experience design. Those things are lacking. And again, right, so some companies are better than that at not, but that's something definitely to be aware of, depending on where those non-tech companies are in their journey. That's in my experience. The other thing that I think that comes with legacy that it's important also is like this differentiation of products versus services. If you used to sell services and now you're trying to shift to selling products, because fundamentally the business models will be different and it translates to how your product is treated. What I've seen a lot of the times in companies that started as services and the mindset is still there, it's very hard to scale because it relies on people and expertise. And a lot of the time their development is very bespoke in its nature because the culture and services, people are treated to say yes to everything that the customer asks, right? And you figure out the creative ways to solve it. In product, we are trained to say no until we're very clear on what the value proposition is, what the market fit, all of those things, and until we know what the ROI is going to be. So I think there is potentially some friction, again, in some companies that I've seen, depending on how long they're on the journey, that I think is important to be aware. So I'll try to keep it short. I know we're over time.
Valuable lessons to share with the audience.
And I would be interested to see, hear others' perspective. But again, back to your question, if it's something you need to consider when you're looking at your next job, I would say I would. And the harsh reality is it really depends where the company is on the transformation journey and how long their product culture is. Because a lot of the times it is going to make your work harder to get buy-in and get the stuff done. But it also is a great opportunity, I will share like that's where I am with my company right now, and we're on the journey. But it's a great opportunity coming in as a product manager into the organization because you have the opportunity to shape your product culture and build it and establish it. And a lot of the time, it's very exciting place to be in, but it's not for everybody. So.
Definitely it's not for everybody. I like that the fact that you mentioned it, and I want to act and follow up on that. And I want to ask the audience to tell us in the comments, do you think about these points, the points that were mentioned by Victoria when you're searching for your job? Do you think about product culture? Do you think about, hey, do they treat product managers the right way? Do they know the difference between project and product managers? I see, Guy, you're smiling, and I'm sure there is a very good reason for that, because we all been there to some degree, right? We may saw that in other companies, and we're just happy that was not our reality, and maybe this was one of the things that we had to deal with in the past. So please, deal leaders, tell us in the comments if you think about this when you're searching for a job, because I think that, Victoria, as you said, this is a critical point for everyone to think about. As all challenges, it is not supposed to stop you, but it is something that you need to keep in mind. Loving it. Thank you very much. And we are moving to you, Guy, with a question from Dominique. And he's asking, how are product teams generally structured in non-tech companies?
Okay, so first of all, I'll go with, we're talking about the non-tech first companies. This is a vast market that differentiates between services and manufacturing, so it can be very different. Additionally, in the classic structure of companies, you can see 3-4 different structures, which means either it's a regional structure, if it's an international company, or is it a functional structure that goes in the classic way, marketing, finance, R&D, product, or is it divided to business units, and each one has all of these staff? So first of all, it really depends on the company. I'll give an example for the company that I worked for. I worked for Samsung Electronics in the past, in its local headquarters in Israel. And we had a product team that consisted of product managers in the consumer electronics business. We had account managers, retail marketing, supply chain people, analysts, all sitting on the same team and communicating with each other to create or bring great products and to market them. And we were working with regional product managers in Dubai and headquarters in Korea and global product managers. So it was a very matrix type of product teams and product array. So product organizations can be very complex. But in general, I would say that in many of the companies, while product culture and product people or roles are not yet embedded, you can see that it would be next to the marketing, because R&D and development, if it's a manufacturing company, would be sitting somewhere probably around the factory side, communicating with their HQ, thinking about global interests and ROI. And the product people will be more on the business units and try to escort the marketing and try to understand the customers and try to connect between the different touch points that the customers and the supply chain and other factors work around. What I do think is that with time, more and more companies adopt the product function, and we see that also FMCG companies also start to recruit product people, and they're starting to adopt the same kind of techniques that we in the high-tech sectors are doing, which is giving the product to have all this broad range of inbound to outbound effect on the organizations. And with time also, all these classic companies, these conservative companies are moving to different kinds of structures of smaller, more embryonic kind of structures of small teams that have the freedom to develop or to initiate some initiatives on their own. So with time, I believe that the product structure, the product organizations will look either quite similarly like they do in the high-tech sector or in some matrix way, as I said before.
I love it. I love your answer. And I think that, great minds think alike. And Civika, another mentor that is now watching us in the audience, saying, yes, but sometimes is replying to my question that I asked before about if this is something that you think about when you're searching for a new position. And he says, yes, but sometimes they are looking for someone to kickstart that type of culture that is not yet quite there. So exactly what you were trying to say, you said very successfully, Guy, that sometimes this is just like a moving stage, right? This is a stage for the company. They realize that they need to be more agile, that they need to adapt to the market in different ways, that they need to structure their team, maybe in squads, maybe in different under a different mechanism. And then we go back to culture, and this goes back to what you, Victoria, said, that it is a challenge. It's a great challenge. It's a challenge that worth facing with, as you're doing right now, as you share with us in your company. But we all should be very much aware of that. I like how everything comes aligned in a very nice way. So thank you, you all. And now, again, to a question that goes to all of you. It comes from Ilan, and he's asking, what things can we do to promote product culture? Itzik, let's hear you.
Sure. So one of the great things that I like to do in order to promote the culture inside my organization is starting with setting clear goals and communicating them to everyone in the company. And after that, and most importantly, is try to celebrate them, celebrate the success, even celebrate or just notify and talk about the failures, because it's not as important than the celebration of the success themselves, because eventually each failure is a lesson. Each failure gives us the motivation to keep on and to do better and to improve ourselves. So I think that starting with clear goals and pinpoint them and celebrate or learning from failures is a great way to promote the product culture inside the company.
Loving it. Thank you very much. And Guy, I'm sure you have something to add on the ritual aspect that Itzik just mentioned.
Of course, I do want to state that when we think about culture, we need to remember that, if we go back to the textbooks and if we think about what is the overall broad culture that we're talking about, we need to understand that we're talking about almost anything in the organization is influenced by culture or is culture. The language, the ceremonies and rituals, the celebrations, the respect and honor, the ranking, the history, the pride, the goals, everything has to do with culture. Either it affects the culture or the culture affects it. So this is a very broad system that we need to be thinking of. Having said that, we need to remember we cannot influence the culture so easily. Some of the artifacts of culture are not visual, are not out there. So let's say, if I'll take an example, the way that employees dress to work is something very visual. We can influence that, we can change it, we can manage it. But other things are more implied. All these agreements about how do we treat targets. Do we think that we can reach them, or can we pass by them and maybe they're not reached and everything will be okay and we will manage the roadmap accordingly? So in order to affect the culture, we need to select, as product leadership, what is the artifacts of culture that we can actively promote and change? So obviously, the visual ones, the ones that everybody sees and that affects the activity and the feeling around the product, which means the way that our teams talk about the product, the way that we treat the customers. Are we happy or are we sad when some certain things happen? So if there's a launch, are we really excited? Do we communicate this excitement to everybody around us? What contains in our emails to our fellow colleagues? Are we very formal or are we non-formal in our communication? Each of these decisions will influence the culture in one way, and we need to select at some point as leadership, what are we going to do in each one of them? So the visual ones would be the easier to begin with. The rituals, we can create rituals. In my previous company, which was a non-tech first company, we created all these rituals to celebrate and to put milestones on the calendar that were not naturally there, but it affected the entire organization. Everybody knew that something is happening. They were waiting for it. The things that were said there influenced the way that people grasp our product and our initiative. So putting rituals, putting new initiatives and new meetings on the board, which are valuable, which serve a purpose and can strengthen everybody's relation to the product and to our main focus, would be something that is good to add. And of course, anything we do internally within the product team will also spill over to the sides. Our people will begin walking around the organization, talking beautiful things about our product, and will be evangelists for our product, not only the people that do the work and give the requirements. We need to empower them. That's the empowerment. Yes, Marty Kagan, you got it. So that's our small.
We are here to spread product love.
Totally. So that's it from me.
Loving it. Thank you very much. And in the chat, guys, in the comments, you can find a link provided to you by Guy that want to make sure that you have some materials to read. So thank you, Guy, for that. And this leaves us with you, Victoria. What do you think are the things that we can do to promote product culture in our organizations?
I mean, I think you guys nailed it. I think Itzik and Guy, really great points. And I definitely agree, Guy, with your point of sometimes you can't tackle everything, right? So you have to focus on which parts of product culture are the most, that you want to focus on, and then expand from there. That's, definitely an approach that worked for me in the past. I would say pick the ones that are most visual, but also the ones that are the most impactful, where you can actually show value. So, because I think, and that kind of my tip would be also sometimes, especially if you're in a big company, making that change across the entire organization may be hard. So just start small. Pick one area of a product or one product line. And try to embed product culture in some of those best ways of working, right? Or those areas of culture that you want to focus on for that and showcase your success. It goes a long way. When you can, have an example and say, this is how things can work differently, and you can actually link it back to the value, it's huge. So rather than trying to change the whole world right away, you can start small and do kind of pilots within my team.
Start small with big impact, because I think you touch upon some great points here. And Ilan, who submitted a question, is here to thank you guys for your tips that you share with him. And also Lior is one of our mentees, is sharing that when she moved to a company that she previously worked with, she was always in awe of how the PM she worked with turned a low-tech company without any product function into a product-oriented organization. And she think, and I think we all agree with her, that the most important thing is personality, to be outgoing and friendly and gain people trust. Gain people trust with what Guy mentioned, that is about spreading product love. With Itzik, call out for clear goals and celebration of both failures and success, because both are important for our process. And as Victoria mentioned, just make sure that you don't only talk about what we should do, but also make sure that everyone understands why should we do it as an organization and understand the value that comes with it. I think, guys, that you nailed it, and that was fantastic. And Itzik, we're going back to you with a question from Ophir, who is asking, how do you engage the team in times when most of the work is routine and not as challenging from a technical point of view? And this question, guys, goes to all companies. It doesn't matter if you're a tech first or non-tech first. Sometimes we need to do the routine, annoying, boring work, but someone has to do it. So Itzik, how do you keep your team motivated?
Yeah, so first of all, I personally, I think I want to address it at a broader scope and address it not only for the product team, but for every relevant team that we as a product managers are interacting with. It can be other colleagues or the development teams. because this challenge of routine work can come from every direction, and eventually it will impact us, and it can impact, of course, it can impact the product. So it's a very important issue that we need to observe. And on this matter, I would observe it from two perspectives. The first one is how to avoid it. How can we avoid it and embed it in our culture that the teams won't feel bored, stuck into routine, not challenged enough, because I do believe that the feeling that the person has that is bored or that is stuck in routine usually means that he's not feeling challenged enough. He doesn't have any enough motivation to keep him going, even during the routine the routine tasks, because, for example, we as a product manager, we can do a lot of different tasks. If it's like playing with Excel files or just writing a lot of documentation, which is not always the most exciting ones, but we do understand the importance and the impact and the importance, of course, that it has to our customers. And when we do understand it, then eventually it doesn't feel to us like a routine or boring work. So I think this basic feeling that we can embed it inside of everyone or every employee that interacts with or is part of the work that is part of the team that is working on our product. So I think that from initially I would try and avoid it. Try to challenge myself, my team, everyone to move fast, to reach our target. And even when we reach our target, for example, we have a main KPI, and at the certain quarter we reach the target. Okay, so for the next quarter, let's double it, let's triple it, let's reach even higher than what we initially feel in our gut, because it will keep us challenged. And even if we won't made it, it will still give us the motivation that we are aiming higher and we want to win. So this is the first perspective on how to avoid. Having said that, we do aware that it still can happen. We still can be dealing with those kind of situations that one of the employees or even we as a product manager not feeling challenged enough or feeling a little bit bored in our day-to-day tasks. So when we do it, so I think it's a good indication to start and be creative and like mix and spice things up. And we can do it with few methods. It can be like spending some time at other teams, like spending time with other stakeholders or other teams in the companies that we are usually not so familiar or not in day-to-day interaction. Like for example, I used to do it by myself, but also have my team also do it. That once a month we're going to the support or to the customer service team and acting as a support engineer for a full day. And it starts with the basic motivation that I want to get some direct feedback from customer, and also I want to see how the support engineer is feeling on his day-to-day, because a lot of the product experience is coming or is affected by the service that the company is giving to the customer. So for example, going for a day and just hanging out with them and just get their feedback, but also like changing your environment and talk a little bit different language can inspire you, can give you an additional motivation to address a different area that you didn't thought of. So like changing your routine and changing your day-to-day operation can be highly significant to overcome this feeling of a little bit stuck in routine. In addition, I also encourage everyone to try and make a sharing environment and get some ideas from other people in the company. It can be from developers, from salespeople, from manager. In the software business, usually on startup or even in software companies, everyone has an idea. We usually are totally aware of it, because in Israel, each one of the person has like 20 different ideas on each issue. But I think it's something that is very common in the software industry. If you would ask 20 people, you would get 40 different ideas. So it's always a good thing to try and share and try to put some different stakeholders or different people from different companies in the team in an open discussion or some brainstorming, running like a design a design workshop together with them, just to like try and flow the juices and create something new, or just thinking on a new idea. And it doesn't have to really generate like a new product or a new test, but usually it can be like a good break or a good outlet from our day-to-day, just to release us, just to make us zoom out and let us digest all our tasks and in the proper resolution, or getting and setting back our proportion. So to sum it up, I will prefer to avoid it, but if you have to, try to mix it up, be creative, get advices from your colleague managers. They will usually have a good advice for you, because eventually one of the greatest advantages that we have as a product manager is that we are available for everyone in the company and externally. So we do have different directions that we can go to. We can try and be creative with the success team, or with the sales, or with the marketing, of course with the R&D, or just with customers or partners. So eventually, if you do get to that place, try and innovate in a similar way.
Very interesting. And one of the first points that you mentioned, Itzik, was focus on the value that even a boring so-called work brings to the table. So this brings us to the next question. It goes to you, Victoria. It comes from Eyal, and he's asking exactly about that. Any tips on how to make the organization look at value and not features?
The $1 million question, isn't it? And I know there's been so much discussion lately about focus on, the outcomes versus the outputs. And I personally have a little bit of a challenge with that statement, because I think there will be no outcomes without outputs. So I think it's not focus on one versus the other. It's about how you tie your outputs to deliver valuable outcomes. But I think, not to hone on, some of the stuff that was already, I think Itzik mentioned before, but to me, it all comes down to starting with setting up goals. And that's really where it all starts, because, and doing it as a team, preferably together, because one of the biggest benefits of focusing on value and outcomes over just features is that it lets everyone feel more connected with a shared purpose across product and stakeholders and within the team, internally and externally, and being able to see the results and align to the mission. So there are different goal settings frameworks. OKR is extremely popular. There are a lot of others that really help you tie out your outcomes and value with some of your deliverables, and also. The other tip would be to have very clearly quantified metrics that you can track, both against your goals, but also, I think, even if you're working on features, and a lot of the time, you're a product manager, you have like very small and narrow area of focus. But even for features, I would say make sure your features are always tied to your goals. One of the things we're doing in our company is make sure every feature that gets prioritized in our backlog, we're very clear on what of our goals it's actually going to help us to achieve. One, and two, have very clearly defined success criteria. And success criteria doesn't mean we delivered on time and with no bugs. Success criteria also means what's the value that we actually expect to see, right? Do we expect to see increase in our conversion, or we expect to see margins go down? Whatever the metric is, even when you're thinking about individual features, always try to tie it back. And then there's also, I think one of the things is education would be my tip, especially in non-tech first companies. I think it's a lot of educating the rest of the organization about, what our role is and the importance of focusing on outcomes. That's why I highly recommend, when you're going through goal setting exercise, involving others, leading with transparency and purpose, and making sure you can set those up even with your stakeholders, so it gives a shared sense of purpose. And also thinking about the value that you can get in learnings and discovery and experiments, not just every feature needs to drive revenue, right? There's, things that you prioritize. So it's a mind shift, I think, for some people, but understand that there's value even if it didn't deliver, but we learned something.
I love it because I think you are going back to the core of product management, right? This is the core of product management. It's not the basic in the sense of, shallow methods, but the essence that stands behind our work. And I love the fact that you mentioned that, because if we are to remind the organization, if we are, the profits of product management in the company, and we want everyone to focus on the value, not on the features. So exactly that, bring, as I said, educate, right? It's about education. Bring the essence of product management into the essence of how things work out in the company. And I think this is great. Anything to mention? Other thing to mention, Victoria?
I think that's probably it. The only other tip I would say, make sure you're reviewing those goals regularly on a regular basis, and not just you define them and you never go back, right? So
do your job as a product person. Loving it. Thank you very much, Victoria. And we are talking, all of us, Itzik, Guy, Victoria, and myself, we're talking about building product culture, specifically in companies that are not tech first. So companies that not usually have the product state of mind and the definition understanding of what product management is. This is where you have the opportunity to bring the message and the value of product management into the company. And we're here to help you to build it the right way with this magnificent 3 Product League mentors answering your questions on how to build product culture. And with that in mind, I think that Svika in the audience has a very good discussion point to mention, or a comment where he's saying, let's remember that Kanban started in the manufacturing industry. If tech companies can borrow the good stuff from other industries, it should be possible the other way around too. So even if we're talking about traditional tech first companies, we've all been there. We've all been in, these amazing companies that do themselves wonderful PR about how product oriented they are, and still the challenges, the mistakes are all there, and we all need to make sure, it doesn't matter the orientation of the organization, we need to make sure that we build a product culture that actually bring people around the understanding of the value of product management. Loving it. And now, when we are talking about product management in companies that are not tech first, Guy, Nandini has a question to you, and she's asking, how can outsourcing be figured out in such a culture? And before you answer, I want to shout out again to the audience and remind them that we want to hear from them, and we want to know what are the questions that they would like to ask you. So please, dear audience, leaders in the audience, make sure to comment with your question. And Guy, the mic is yours.
Well, so we're talking about outsourcing. Now, this is a specific question that I think that I would be also happy that my colleagues will give their input, because it really depends on the company and which market they're working at and what is their product or service that they deliver. I'll give an example. I came originally from the manufacturing market with Samsung Electronics, and within Samsung Electronics, working with outsourcing companies was actually not very different than working with in-house teams that were distant, remote, from different angles, whether it's product teams or business management teams or supply chain or factories. Eventually, when I developed this AR app for one of our products for the retail teams to be using, the work was quite similar. Now, because the structure, as we talked about how classic companies and enterprises are built, then first of all, waterfall was the model of development that was applied. And because we were talking about hardware products, there was no second try. There was no time for iteration, really. You had to deliver as perfect as possible product. Now, this is something that in tech companies, we know that we don't do. We do not deliver a 100% product. We deliver an 85% product, and then we iterate. And this is exactly the difference between those tech first or software companies that we know and classic companies or physical goods companies. So in my perspective, the kind of work with outsourcing was not very different. I had to be very well defined, and my requirements had to be precise when you work with outsourcing, as we know from the high-tech industry, and you have to deliver it and create the right communication that allows you to give the project enough time for iterations, because it is quite similar to this black box of development that you don't know exactly what happens in the team. You're not their product owner, you're not their scrum master, you don't know what happens there, and you get some deliveries at the end, and you have very little time to affect it eventually. So what I had to do is be very much prepared, very planned, very data-driven in order to nail it on the first time. Now, I know that it doesn't always happen in other companies. Victoria, Itzik, what do you think?
I would agree, and again, my experience is slightly different because we're moving to be more a technology and data company, right? So our product is software from a company that started as a non-tech first. But I would say, outsourcing is outsourcing. I would say the challenges are probably the same, and the benefits are the same. So I haven't seen a significant difference between non-tech first versus tech first. The one thing I will say is that I did see is recruiting top engineering talent. If you are looking to not outsource and you want to have collocated teams and in-house, it's typically easier if you're a tech company with established reputation, as opposed to getting top engineering and product talent for companies that are not tech first, don't have that reputation yet.
Wise words. Thank you very much, Victoria. And of course, thank you very much, Guy. Itzik, anything to add?
Yes, so I can definitely testify that working with outsourced teams can be very challenging, but eventually culture wins. If you're building and you have the proper culture in your product, organization, and even inside your company, it will propagate to the outsourced team. And of course, I can say it firsthand. It can be more challenging than to working with your own development teams, but eventually culture win and culture eats processes. So if you do have it and if you know how to build it, then you can manage each challenge even with the outsourced team.
Loving it. There is hope outside. Thank you very much, Itzik. And we're staying with you because Ina has a very important question to ask you. And she is asking, how can you impact product culture from a PM or senior PM position? So when you're not in the senior position in the company, you're not a director, VP products, chief product officer, whatever the title will be, you're just, quote unquote, product manager or senior product manager. How can you drive the company to have a better product culture?
So first of all, I really do believe that the product managers are the core of the organization. Of course, they are core of the product organization, but I also believe that they are core of the company. And as such, they need to understand that first of all, you need to lead by example. You need to understand that the product managers and even the senior ones are the working floor. They are the ones that really move the wheels inside the company and motivate everyone and set the vision and set the task and the goal. So what usually happens is that executives and managers are setting the vision, trying to set the tone, but the ones that really decide if it would be implemented and how it would roll out inside the teams or the employees themselves. And when we're talking on product, we're talking on the product managers. So having a vision and having like a clear view of what the product culture should be usually would come from the executives, but the one that will execute it and implement it are the product managers. So it's very important to understand that, because the product managers are the engine, are the motivator for this whole product culture and all the nice methods and concepts that we are trying to promote and implement. So eventually each product manager needs to understand it, needs to lead by example, needs to understand that his behavior, his action, the way that he communicate and collaborate with other teams affects his whole environment. And due to the fact that product people are usually at the center of the company, they are interact with most of the team, with the senior teams, like with management, vertically, internally, externally. So eventually, the way that you are handling your product and your own culture would affect the ones that around you. So first of all, it's very important to understand it. And once you understand it, you can always find a lot of tools on how to improve yourself as a product manager, because when you understand that your behavior would affect your environment, then if you just be a good product manager, and as a good product manager, you would have the desire for self-improvement, to have the growth personality, and to always improve. So it will definitely, it will affect your colleagues, your peers, and most importantly, it will affect your managers. And this is something that a lot of juniors are not really understand, that you do have the ability to affect your managers. When the team behaves at a certain with a certain habit, it will affect the manager. It will give them the ability to understand what is also the expectation from the team. So it's a mutual way. Know how to balance it, how to reflect it to the surroundings, and I think you have a great potential, and most importantly, the power to impact your environment.
Raise the bar, guys, and remember that although you are not in the senior position in the company, you can still be an example, right? Serve as an example to everyone and show everyone how things are done the right way. I love this, Itzik. Thank you very much. And now, the holy grail of questions. It comes from Monique, and she's asking all of you, what has been the most difficult challenge you faced concerning building product culture, and how did you overcome it? Who would like to start?
I can start.
Go ahead, Victoria.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's really hard to pinpoint one, right, that I would pick over the others, but I would say, for me, just because it's more fresh and something we're dealing with right now, one of the biggest challenges is embedding the customer centricity, and the importance of that as part of the product organization. So again, as you know, we're in this transitional journey. Again, the company as a whole considers itself being customer centric, but sometimes there isn't not really an understanding of what does it mean to be customer centric from a product perspective. Why do product managers need to be talking to customers when we have salespeople talking to customers, right? When we have services or things like that. So I think customer centricity and embedding that is definitely one of the challenges we're trying to tackle right now. And there's different things we're doing. I think Itzik, you touched on some of similar things that you might be doing with your team. So one thing that we're doing is actually having a very building close relationship between the product and the customer success and customer support teams, and having regular connections and having touch points and having people kind of shadow each other. We're also working on establishing client advisory boards, building that discovery and feedback loops and with our users as part of our process. And really, we actually have goals around customer interviews that we're setting up with our teams. And it's, again, and part of that is obviously embedding it within the product team, but also going back to my point about educating the rest of the organization, because customer centricity is way too important to be left just to the product team alone. It needs to be think across your entire organization. So it needs to be a shared effort. And one of the things specifically that we tried recently is we're experimenting with design sprints, which is the process by Google Venture. I think they included the link, which is a really cool way in 5 days to get from a conceptual idea to prototype and validated it in front of customers. And again, we're trying it with including the broader people across the organization in our design sprint to really build that focus on customer needs and customer centricity and getting direct feedback from customers that have been proven very successful so far. So those would be my thoughts.
Great thoughts and great links, because you also included links to share with the audience. So please make sure to click on the comments that are just shared with you. One is about the usage of design sprint. This is the second one you mentioned. And the first one is how to be more centric around product customer. Okay, how to be focused and centric around the experience of the customers. Both links are waiting for you in the comments. And now we are moving to you, Guy. So what is your tip or trick to share with the audience regarding a challenge that you had to face concerning building product culture?
Well, the most challenging, unbreakable, problematic thing that I had to deal with in a previous company was the bias towards gut feeling. We were collecting tons, terabytes of data, but we were utilizing for decision making so little of it. Oh, so little of it. So eventually there was always a gap between the reality and what the perceptions were, because the data eventually represents the reality and why things happened, but the gut feeling was always in a different position. So when I started to talk the numbers, first of all, to learn the numbers, and then to talk the numbers, to initiate these discussions with the numbers. How can you explain that the adoption of XYZ feature was 1, 2, 3? Then the conversation automatically moved to discuss the numbers. So gut feelings at some point were left aside. We did the workshop, I remember 2 days, and it was all around the numbers. And for me, it felt like a small victory, because like 3-4 years back, I was there for like 7 years. So 3-4 years back, we would not have talked that way. Once we start to talk the numbers, it's something that attracts everybody. Everybody wants to see the data, the numbers, the insights. You can visualize it, you can show it, you can play with it. So talk the numbers, everybody will align to that eventually.
Loving it. Set an example, like Itzik said previously. If you are doing something that is different and it works for you, probably everyone at the company will follow you because they will see the results. And as you shared, data has the impact to have a lot of results on what we do. And you just shared a link with the audience about how to be more driven around data-driven when it comes to decisions making, especially in product management. So thank you very much, Guy. And Itzik, now what do you have to share with the audience about a challenge that you had to face when it came to product culture, building product culture, and what did you do to solve that?
So my biggest challenge that I usually am trying to embed is to embed inside the team and inside the company the desire to win. I think that it is, for me, it should be a basic tool for all of us, for the product manager and for all of the product team. And I always have these references to athletes, to professional athletes that, for example, like we very soon, a lot of us would see the Olympics, and when we are seeing athletes at the Olympics, then what we are seeing is their final step. We see that they're just their 1 or 2 minutes that they are competing, but what we don't see is the amount of work and the tons of years and dedication and perseverance and the daily work and the daily struggle that they have in order to really perform at the highest level at the 1 or 2 minutes that they have at a certain competition. And usually for a lot of us, eventually a lot of our work can be summed up to a short period of time that is really being tested. Like we can work on a feature or on a product for a long period, but eventually it would be examined in 1 month, in 1 quarter after we worked on it for a full year. And the things that I like to take from professional athlete is the iceberg model. When you see an iceberg, you just see the tip. You cannot see the whole iceberg. And eventually, the product work is very similar. You need to do a lot of work, and the only way, or the start of the way to developing this motivation is to understand that we want to win. And winning in the business side is that we have a business vision, a business goal, a KPI, and we want to reach it, and we want to overachieve it. And when you have this basic motivation and this basic desire, then you would be up for the gain that it takes from you, because we're talking on a daily effort, daily struggle. You have a lot of conflicts, a lot of prioritization to do. Everybody is tackling you with requests. Everybody has a better idea for a product, and eventually you want to find this balance and deliver the best product you can. So for me, it all becomes from the basic desire to win. And this is something that I really like to take as a reference from professional athletes, because they are doing it at the highest level that is out there.
I love it. So if in the introduction we said that you love playing basketball, now we get to learn that you also love to play product management. I love to see the whole Itzik and different aspects of personal and career life combined. Guys, we are just about to close the session, and it's time for me to tell you that I had so much time learning from you and discussing product culture with you and asking you, how was your experience with us? Guys, did you have the time? That was a question as well. That was a question from me, not from the audience. A question from me.
I'll go first. Thank you very much for the questions. They were great. They were to the point. It made us think. It made me think. And go ahead and do that product culture that we're talking about.
Exactly. Itzik, Victoria, anything to add and tell the audience before we close?
Yeah, I don't know how about you guys, but I really enjoyed it, and I learned a thing or two. So that's awesome.
Loving it. Loving these little product parties with you guys. Itzik?
Yeah. So again, another session for me. It's always very insightful for me to hear other opinions and other people's aspect on similar challenges that we are facing on a daily basis. And even though it's my third time, it's still very insightful for me. And Moriya, it's my third time, so I should get like a small gift or an ice cream or something like that. It's about time.
I'll take care of that. Thank you for this point. From Tel Aviv, this was Itzik Adziashvili, VP Product at Uni Diamonds and Product League Mentor. From Los Angeles, Victoria Kazovsky, Head of Product at Kantar Insights and Product League Mentor. And from Tel Aviv as well, Guy Amrany, Product League at Curve Tech and Product League Mentor. I'm Moriya Kassis. This is Product League. Thank you so much for watching us, and we can't wait to support you on becoming the best PM you can be. Until then, go league it up. Bye-bye, leaguers. Guy, Victoria, and Itzik, I had such a great time. Thank you all.
As well. Bye. Everyone.